February 14th, 1692, was not a romantic Valentine's Day in Salem Village, Massachusetts. In the cold, drafty Meetinghouse, Minister Samuel Parris looked out at his congregation and delivered a message that wasn't quite so loving.
He said, "It is a woeful piece of our corruption in an evil time, when the wicked prosper and the godly party meet with vexations."
Very romantic indeed. Welcome to Salem Witch Trials Daily. I'm Josh Hutchinson.
I'm Sarah Jack. Today we're going to hear what Reverend Samuel Parris was saying from the pulpit during the witch trials. We're tracking his sermons from the winter of 1691 through the height of the witch trials in late 1692.
It's a fascinating and frankly chilling progression. You can actually see the switch flip from general theology to specific, targeted spiritual warfare.
Exactly. And it starts before the first accusation is even made. Let's go back to November 22nd, 1691. Tensions in the village are already high regarding Parris's salary and firewood. So what does he choose to preach on? Psalm 110:1.
Which reads, "The Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou at my right hand until I make thine enemies a footstool."
You have to wonder, when he said enemies, was he thinking of Satan, or was he staring directly at the parishioners who refused to pay his salary?
Knowing Parris, probably both. By January 3rd, 1692, the rhetoric heated up. In the morning service, he preached that God was incensed and angry. He told them that all of mankind, even the elect, were children of wrath.
And that afternoon, yes, there was more than one sermon each Sunday, he introduces the antagonist. He preaches that the devil is a direct, active threat trying to pull down the church. He mentions wicked and reprobate men, whom he calls the assistants of Satan.
But then something very human happens in the middle of the sermon, and he stops abruptly. The notes literally say, "But by reason of the cold, so much shall suffice."
It's such a telling detail. It's the dead of winter. Parris is freezing because his town hasn't supplied enough firewood. His physical misery is fueling the spiritual narrative of persecution, but he's too cold. He's cold, he's angry, and he's telling the flock that the devil is at the door, but he's not warm enough to stand there and keep telling them that.
By February 14th, that romantic Valentine's Day sermon we opened with, the witchcraft accusations have not opened up yet. Parris tells the congregation to war a good warfare. He's rallying the troops, but for what?
The vague enemies from the November sermon are becoming real. By March 27th, the crisis has exploded. Parris addresses it head on. He mentions the dreadful witchcraft that has broken out, and then he turns to the story of Judas.
This is a turning point. He quotes Christ saying, "Have not I chosen you 12, and one of you is a devil?" He isn't talking about scary monsters in the woods anymore. He's telling them the devil is sitting in the pew next to you.
He even lists the sins that make someone a devil. It's a list of his personal grievances: slanderers, accusers of the godly, opposers of godliness, and number 5 on the list, envious persons as witches.
And that same day, he publicly chastises Mary Sibley for baking the witch cake, using magic to find magic. He calls it going to the devil for help against the devil. And he claims that by baking this cake, the devil hath been raised amongst us.
As spring turns to summer, the sermons disappear from the record. For June and July, his notebook just says "see loose papers." These papers are lost. But the narrative picks up in a different book, the church record book. This is where theology turns into bureaucracy.
It's August 14th. The trials are in full swing. Executions have begun. 6 people at this point have been executed, and 5 more are going to be executed in 5 days. But Parris notices some empty seats in the Meetinghouse. The families of the accused, Peter Cloyce, Samuel Nurse, John Tarbell, they've stopped coming to church.
Isn't that understandable? Considering Parris is testifying against their wives and mothers. But the church votes to send a delegation to ask why they are absent.
Imagine that knock on the door. Brother Tarbell, we noticed you missed communion.
The report back on August 31st, 1692 is heartbreaking. Brother Tarbell is sick and can't speak. Brother Cloyce is hard to find because he is constantly at the prison in Ipswich, hanging out with his wife Sarah.
So the church decides to wait further. There's not much else they can do. But Parris isn't done. On September 11th, after 6 more people are condemned, including church member Martha Cory, Parris returns to the pulpit.
He preaches that the devil has found assistance from amongst us. That same day, the church votes to excommunicate Martha Cory.
And 3 days later, Parris goes to the prison to tell her in person.
We have his account of it. He calls her obdurate, stubborn. He says she justified herself and condemned her accusers. He pronounces the dreadful sentence of excommunication right there in the jail cell. She refused to pray with him.
She knew who he was. She knew what he was doing.
Finally, we get to October 23rd. The bloodiest part of the trials is winding down. But the trauma is fresh. Families like the nurses and the Cloyces are shattered, and Parris chooses to preach on kisses.
He says kisses are very sweet among true friends after some jars and differences. Kisses are exceeding sweet among friends that have been long absent.
Jars and differences. Witch hunts. Absent, the very word he used to hunt down the nurse and Tarbell families.
It's hard to read that and not feel the disconnect. Was he trying to offer an olive branch? Or was he completely oblivious to the fact that the absence he was talking about was caused by the executions?
Whether he intended it or not, preaching about the sweetness of reunion to a congregation missing mothers, fathers, and sisters, people Parris helped condemn, is a heavy note to end on.
It certainly is. It shows a man who controlled the narrative from the pulpit, from the first warning of enemies to the final hollow call for kisses.